Hello and welcome to our May 29th, 2026 Freshet Friday podcast. Summer is very much on its way, and we have news about lots of fun events to come, a few that have just happened, and why pressure to build Phase 2 of the Burnaby Hospital redevelopment is growing. I'm your host, Geof Wheelwright, and with me on the podcast this week are the veteran journalists and founders of Freshet News, Janis Cleugh, Theresa McManus, Cornelia Naylor, and Mario Bartel. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Geof.
We'll kick off this week with a story from Cornelia that ran in yesterday's print edition about a rally on the weekend protesting the delay of the Burnaby Hospital redevelopment. How was it? Who showed up? What did they have to say? And will it make a difference, Cornelia?
Well, I hope so, for our residents who seem clearly upset about this delay. So as our readers will already know, the province, Burnaby Hospital has been approved for a two-phased redevelopment. Phase 1 is just finishing up, not quite complete, but almost finished. And Phase 2 was approved in 2023, an $1.8 billion project that will come with actual more beds. They haven't seen new beds added since the 1970s, which was something that came up at the rally. It'll have a 160-bed tower, cancer center, expanded medical imaging department, and renovated emergency endoscopy departments. It was approved in 2023, but citing financial reasons, the province said it was going to be repaced in February during a budget announcement, said it was going to be repaced, that infamous word, repaced, i.e. delayed. And in April, that contract was canceled. Premier Eby has said that the project's going to go ahead, but that it had gone off the rails and more work is needed on the plan to get it in budget. But the delay has sparked protests. Mayor Mike Hurley, the Burnaby Hospital and Community Foundation, even the Burnaby Board of Trade have made statements urging the province, demanding the province give us clear timelines for construction and more, and also to protect the $1.8 billion so that it doesn't slip off into general revenue and so that it's still there once the project is back on the rails. So that's where this rally on Sunday came in. About a few dozen people gathered at Avondale Park, which is near the hospital, and they basically reiterated those same demands. The event was co-organized and emceed by BC Conservative infrastructure critic Misty Van Popta, who has brought this issue up several times in the legislature. And but surprisingly, well, maybe not surprisingly, but everyone who spoke at the rally basically tried to stay focused on the hospital and kept their affiliations sort of out of it, their political affiliations out of it. I think every speaker that spoke actually said this wasn't a political issue, this is a healthcare issue, it's a community issue. Maybe that was a decision made ahead of the rally, I'm not sure. But yeah, so it was both a not political rally and a very political rally because everybody who wants to run, or a lot of the people who want to run in the municipal elections in the fall ended up being there. So far, the only party that's announced its slate is the Burnaby Citizens Association, and really nothing else has been made public. But I ran into a bunch of people, mayoral candidates, different parties that are eventually going to announce. So they were there, but glad-handing, but not quite ready to announce their runs for city council and the mayoral seat. One example of one of the people that I ran into was David G, or Z. He was a co-organizer of the event. He's a spokesperson for a residents group called Burnaby Neighborhood Watch, and they've rallied multiple times at City Hall against a BC housing project on Imperial Street that BC Housing eventually pulled the plug on. G confirmed to me that he'll be running with a party whose name has not yet been released, but he says they'll have a full slate. At the rally, though, he said healthcare is not a left-wing issue. It's not a right-wing issue. Cancer does not ask how you voted. A heart attack does not ask what party you support. Other people there, Independent Mayor Mike Hurley, he spoke. He said the Burnaby Hospital has always been, quote unquote, disrespected within Fraser Health, and he said it was up to local residents to keep up the pressure to make sure Phase 2 gets built. Robert Bruno, treasurer of the Burnaby Hospital and Community Foundation and executive vice president of Polygon Homes, a local developer or a developer in Metro Vancouver, said local residents are, quote, rightly concerned, unquote, about the future of Phase 2 given the cancellation of the contract. That sounds ominous coming from somebody who knows big building projects. He said delay in major construction projects often results in increased costs, but he said the most important cost of the Phase 2 delay isn't monetary, but to patient care. Finally, another person who spoke was longtime Burnaby Hospital physician, Dr. David Jones. He said, again, the hospital hasn't seen an increase in beds since the 1970s. He reiterated or restated a fact that has been bounced around a lot, which is that Burnaby has that's compared to the Canadian average of 2.6. And by 2032, the Burnaby number is projected to be 0.41 hospital beds per thousand residents. And Jones said that that was quote unquote dangerous. So it's just one more example of the community getting together. There weren't a ton of people there. There were a few dozen. So I don't know. I don't know how much difference it's going to make. But
Well,
it's certainly going to be an issue if these are all the civic candidates. It's certainly going to be an issue that gets louder when the municipal elections come up.
well, and given it sounds like there were quite a few politicians and would-be politicians there, and if there were only a few dozen, I wonder what the percentage was of people who were actually rallying and people who were politicians.
Actually, I had a conversation with a woman who was concerned not about that ratio necessarily at that gathering, but when she approached me, she was asking me who I was, and when she found out I was a reporter, she was almost a little bit disappointed because it's like, oh, we need more citizens to be united so that we can, make a loud cry to make sure that this phase 2 gets built.
Yeah, but those numbers about patient ratios, that's
Mhm.
pretty amazing. Well, speaking of numbers, Janice, you had a story this week with two numbers that really caught my eye. You said that not only will one-third of the city of Coquitlam staff be eligible to retire in 5 years, but also that nearly 40% of its current workforce has less than 5 years of experience working for the organization. That sounds to me like a challenge. How's the city planning to tackle it?
Well, this is a problem with all municipal halls. They see their workforce aging with the boomers leaving, and they have to plan. They have to make themselves attractive so they can bring in top talent and not have their current employees poached by other organizations. So, what the city of Coquitlam is doing, they've put out a draft talent and retention strategy. It's basically a roadmap on how to bring on new people as the population is changing, as the world is going more digital. They're looking at ways to bring on really high skilled professionals. The report itself was quite full of jargon and actually a little bit boring. But I did dig into their report. It's a 24-page report. It's a draft right now. They basically broke it down into 4 generations at Coquitlam City Hall. I'm not sure it's the same as every other municipal hall in Canada. The boomers are the smallest employee demographic. This is ages 61 to 79. They're ending their career, and like I said, right now, 1/5 of their workforce can leave. They're eligible to retire right now, and then when you look at the next 5 years, it's a third. So it's a lot. After the boomers, of course, is the Gen X uh, demographic, which is mine, and this is the sandwich generation. And then you've got the millennials, which they are the biggest cohort at Coquitlam City Hall. They're
Hmm.
very tech savvy, according to their survey, but of course they've got family and they're pinched by the costs. And then this is the cohort that the city really wants to target for the next wave of hires, Gen Z ages 13 to 28. They're going after School District 43. They're going after the post-secondary institutions, and they're really going to try to get these, I'll say, kids to come on board and stay with Coquitlam City Hall because they feel that not only do they need skilled professionals, they need team players. They want to make sure that once you're with Coquitlam, that you stay for a long time because the Gen Z population apparently they like to go to different jobs. They're not like us. They don't like to stay in one job for the rest of their lives, but they like to have a variety of jobs. And so succession planning is really important for the city of Coquitlam, and they've come up with a strategy, and we'll see where it goes.
That is fascinating and a really interesting challenge, and one that I think the outcome is going to impact all of us.
It will.
Well, speaking of predictions about the future, Mario provided a fascinating look this week at how Port Moody's dealing with changes to predictions about its growth. So, how have predictions for the city changed, and what does the city want to do about it, Mario?
Well, this came up at Tuesday's council meeting, a motion by Mayor Megan Lackey to task staff to look at what the process would be to change its prediction or its projection for population that is now embedded in the city's official community plan that was adopted just a few months ago. That document says that by 2050, the city of Port Moody will have a population of about 74,000 people. And that document sort of is the roadmap for development and property or land use in the city for the next 25 years. And so those numbers, that number is pretty important. It determined it's used by the city to determine what kind of infrastructure needs will come with that, what kind of amenities like a rec complex, libraries, community centers, things like that will be needed over the next 25 years. The city is putting together a pretty comprehensive parks and recreation plan based upon that. But the realities of a slowing condo market and rising costs and developments that are slowing down have suddenly come home to roost in the last few months. I mean, it's this council has approved some pretty enormous development projects, especially in the Moody Center area, right near the Moody Center SkyTrain station. And those projects are now slowing down. We talked previously a few weeks ago about the PCI project slowing down, and a couple weeks ago, BD Living. It's as part of its project to build three towers in downtown Port Moody. It also for the extra density, it was also going to build a 6-story transitional housing facility, and the government pulled out funding from that for the time being, and now that whole project, because that transitional housing facility was kind of contingent on the approval of the rest of the project. Now that's kind of all up in the air too, and so as Mayor Lockie explained on Tuesday, with these kind of slowdowns, it's gonna have a domino effect into how many people will be moving into the city. When who knows how long it will take for these projects to come back online. And meanwhile, the city can't continue planning for 74,000 residents if only 55,000 residents are in the city by 2050. So there was some discussion at council about what this would mean and what the process might be. Staff said it shouldn't take them too long to figure out a process to do these recalculations, but it might take them 4 to 6 months to kind of really dig into what the numbers will be and what the implications are of that. Also in the background is a few weeks ago, council decided to defer its discussion about development cost charges. These are charges that are often part of a development agreement when a project's coming into the city and the developer wants extra density, and that they can haggle with the developer about what these cost charges will be and what sort of amenities can be funded through amenity cost charges as well. That whole process has been kind of thrown in the air with the provincial housing legislation, so cities are kind of scrambling right now to come up with new formulas. And so, and that also is impacted by these population projections on how big the city will be, how many residents will be living in it, and what their needs will be for getting around and for just enjoying life in the city. So one councillor, Haven Lerbecki, she said that you can't just do a simple recalculation.
So they're having to look at changes in the predictions, but what are the sources for those changes in predictions?
Well, Metro Vancouver comes up with numbers as well, so they're a bit of a yardstick that the city can work with. Census data, but that tends to lag. We just did our census here in Canada, and those numbers probably won't be available for a couple of years by the time they collate everything and that. So I'm not really sure. They didn't really get into that how they do that. It's probably a good topic for further exploration as to how exactly they do come up with these numbers. Maybe when city staff report back to council, because they did say it would probably take 4 to 6 months to actually do that work. So it might be an opportunity to connect with them and see just what the process is. Because again, it's a chicken and egg thing. If you're building development, then people move there. But if people aren't moving there, you're not building development. So which comes first? And the developers right now are all a little bit gun shy. They're having some cost challenges, and they're seeing the market to soften. People aren't is ready to buy homes right now, and so some big projects have been slowed down in Port Moody, and nobody really knows when they might pick up again. And yeah, it's a difficult game. It's kind of like going to Las Vegas, I guess, and you hope you get it right, but a lot hangs on it. Like when new recreation facilities will be built, when where roads have to be built, or what or that. So it's a lot is at stake. It seems like a simple thing, but there is a lot at stake. Yeah, it touches every level of government. The province is telling cities what they should be building more housing. The cities are trying to respond to that. And the federal government has a role in that too, with infrastructure and that. So these are important numbers, and they can't be taken lightly. You can't just kind of sit down one day and look at a map and say, yeah, maybe like 75,000 people can fit here.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely not just a finger in the wind kind of thing. So, Theresa, you'd also mentioned that there was a similar discussion happening in New West about the discussion on new infill housing.
Yeah, we had a public hearing on Monday night, and well, there was two public hearings, but the first one was about the new infill housing program, and it was quite a doozy. It went on for about 2.5 hours. I think about 25 speakers, mostly civil, which is, sometimes you don't always get that in public hearings. And what this is this is the plan that would see infill housing created in some of the neighborhoods in the city. So there would be, by right, properties would have the ability to build up to 4 units or 6 units, depending on the size of their site. And yeah, there was there was the folks that were lining up there, and a lot of concerns, sort of sharing that sort of growth kind of concerns that Mario was sort of touching on. Do we have the infrastructure to deal with this? Schools. Suddenly at the meeting, the number of folks who are concerned about electricity and sewers and toilets and the whole like was water. It was, quite interesting. And for all the infrastructure nerds out there, it was heartwarming, as some of the counselors were noting. But yeah, counselors did say that they went ahead with it. They supported these changes to the OCP, but nothing's going to happen overnight, they say. It's all going to be market driven. It's all going to be up to individual property owners, because these are developments that will occur on single family sites. They won't need to have lot consolidation. So someone could keep their property for as long as they wanted, or if that was something that they wanted to choose to do, they could do some redevelopment. So, but again, with the way that the market is right now, it's hard to say, what will happen and how fast it happens.
Coquitlam, we're seeing infill housing with up to 8 units on one lot.
Wow.
So imagine what that does to the on-street parking.
Yeah, well, that did come up because, a lot of folks are looking to Burnaby, and because there are some really bad examples of the way that this was rolled out in Burnaby. Folks were talking about up in the neighborhood of 16th Street, 16th Avenue, and some really large homes that basically go from, property line to property line. And I think the city of Burnaby, from what I do recall, has actually dialed back on some of that. I think that they allowed some relaxations that allowed it to be even bigger than was required. And they've kind of gone backwards on that. And New West, the city staff say that they've taken steps to make sure that that doesn't happen here.
So, Mary, you had some great pictures from last weekend's Hayak Parade in New West. They give a great glimpse into the mood and the spirit of the event, which I also attended. And I thought it was so cool. All these community groups. I was particularly impressed with the kids who were out dancing in various groups, the kids who were on floats, like singing. There was a couple of groups that I saw where, they had a band on the float, and they were singing songs. I heard Pink Pony Club twice going by from two different groups, and they were both great. One had a smoke machine, the other didn't. But it was really great to see. So, but you were taking pictures the whole time, and I wondered what was the highlights for you.
Well, it's been over a decade since I've covered a Hayak parade. And I go back to the 90s when it used to be the Hayak International Parade, and it was a big deal in town. The Thursday leading up and the Friday before the parade, big buses would roll in and throngs of big marching bands from California and Washington State would all pile out at Douglas College because that's kind of where they were centralized. And when the parade was on, you knew it was on because those bands went from curb to curb. They had color guards, the whole shit. These are the kind of bands you'd see at halftime of American football games, and it was impressive. And then over the years they went away, and then we had the Seattle Seafair Pirates would be the highlight of the parade. They would always come up towards the tail end, and they had their big pirate ship float, and they'd be blasting the cannon, and the pirates would be running all around the street. Cajoling kids and having fun with the adults too, and that was always a highlight. But they haven't been around for a while either. And now my thought from this year's parade, after not having done it for over a decade, is you're right. It's very community based. There was a lot of multicultural groups there, bringing a lot of color with their dancing. There was a Dominican Republican a group from the Dominican Republic. There was a Peruvian dance troupe. A lot of representation from Central and South America, which I thought was really neat, and it was very colorful and energetic, and kind of made the parade feel smaller in a way, but also more community based. It wasn't a big international affair anymore. It's more of, and it also reflects on how the city has changed, and we have a very large multicultural population here from all over the world. People find their way to New West and settle into their new country, and it's kind of neat to see that.
Yeah, and Theresa, you were there as well, right?
I didn't go, but there are a couple of things that I've heard through the New West grapevine that I really wish I'd been there to see. One of them was our member of parliament, Jake Sawatsky, was in the parade, and he actually apparently was recruited by somebody on his staff to perform. So he was drumming his way through the parade with one of the bands, which I thought was quite
He,
a
he,
quite a sweet thing. And
he was on the
then
he was on the big bass drum for the Air Cadet Squadron.
yeah, yeah.
Because
So I thought
I
that was,
walked past, I saw
I
him go
think
past. And
that's a first. I don't know that we've had a member of parliament drumming their way through the parade. And some of the photos that I did see, he had a big smile on his face, so it looked like he was having a great time. And then the other thing was when I was covering police board this week, there was a mention of Chief Constable Paul Hyland having some issues with his 1947 Nash that he was driving, the police car. Apparently there was some mechanical issues, and he assured everyone at the police board meeting that it wasn't reckless driving. And uh, but apparently some folks had quite a good time taking selfies with the chief when he was experiencing some car troubles.
Well, for me, one of the most touching things was there was the transit museum had an old transit bus, and they had the name of Chief Rhonda Larrabee on the front of the bus.
Hmm.
And that there was a drummer walking in front of that, and it was really it was quite a tribute. Yeah, so it was a cool moment. So, speaking of cool moments, Teresa, you have a story this week about the Indigenous market returning to New West Key, and that caught my eye as another example of the great community spirit that we see in the community in action. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, this one's going to be in its fifth year, and it's the Indigenous Market and Expression of Reclamation. And this is really meant to be an opportunity just to support Indigenous artists and then help to advance economic reconciliation. Um, but it looks like it's, I have not attended this one in the past, but I'm definitely be going to this one. It's like a day of entertainment, and I mean some Juno nominated artists there. These are some talented folks: culture, music, food, fashion, and that's all on Saturday, June 6th from 11 to 5 at the boardwalk down at Westminster Quay. The other thing about this, Jeff, is that the vendor selection committee is all Indigenous, and so they are responsible for curating this year's lineup. So yeah, they all dedicate their time to ensure a fair and authentic and diverse marketplace at this event.
That is very cool. Thank you for that. And now we're going to turn to something that's maybe not so cool. We come to our Freshet 911 segment, where we talk about interactions with emergency services. And our first item comes from Janis, and it's about a shocking assault on a Coquitlam senior by a home invader wearing an RCMP cap. What happened, Janis?
Well, Geof, this is one of these press releases that comes out and it just sends chills down your spine. This is a gentleman in Coquitlam. He's elderly, and somebody was looking at his home and looking that he was alone. And on Monday, so this person, he went to a neighbor's home and he inquired about this person, this elderly man living alone. He posed as a tradesperson. And later in the day, he cased his house. He went in while the man was sleeping. Um, the victim woke up and found the man in the house, and he was physically assaulted. We don't know how. He was forcibly confined. We don't know how. We don't have much information from Coquitlam RCMP other than this happened. This person was wearing an RCMP hat, was wearing a lanyard with an emblem on it, and he stole his car, he stole his cell phone, and he stole his credit cards. And the suspect got away in the vehicle and it's still at large. The vehicle, if you see it, it is a 2022 green Hyundai Kona, license plate AWE 311. This man is shaken, obviously, and the suspect is a Caucasian male, and he's about 5'11". He's quite rotund, and he was wearing tan leather gloves at the time. They did release a photo of this person walking away with a bag, but I gotta tell you, having elderly parents myself, this would be quite shocking to hear about, and I don't have much more to say other than this is very strange in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and the photo that you mentioned is on the website?
It is, yeah, on freshetnews.ca.
Great. Thank you for that. And then we also have a story that's more about 911 prevention than anything else. It's from Cornelia and deals with the fact that e-scooters are now illegal on major Burnaby roads and parks. Cornelia, can you tell us more about this change and what it means for Burnaby scooter users?
Sure. Well, I'm sure we have all seen scooters zipping up and down streets, hopping onto sidewalks, zipping through parks. Two kids on one scooter, no helmets. It's like the Wild West out there. And I think every city is grappling with this. The province has put on is in for some years now has been running this electric kick scooter pilot regulation project. So it's a pilot regulation that's like legislation that's only going to be in place until, I actually don't know when it expires, but it has an expiry date, and municipalities sign on to be part of this project, and those that legislation, those rules are put in place in every community that becomes a part of that project. So Burnaby joined that pretty late. There were already a bunch of communities involved, and they joined it, I think it was late last year or early this year. It might have been early this year. There are some rules in that pilot regulation that people clearly are not aware of, or they're just ignoring the rules. Like, for example, you are not supposed to use them on sidewalks. You have to be over the age of 16. Also, besides joining the pilot project, on May 12th, the city passed or amended its street and traffic bylaw and its parks bylaw and added some extra rules. So now, since that bylaw was passed, e-scooters in the city of Burnaby are not allowed on major road network or arterial roads. And so some of those roads include Hastings Street, Kingsway, Gallardy Way. Just the other day, I was going up to SFU and I saw a scooter laboring up the hill there with just nothing in between, but a line between, vehicles. You know how far, like how fast they scream up that road. There's cars going 70 kilometers an hour, and there's nothing, like there's barely anything between that e-scooter and the traffic. So that would definitely be that would definitely be contrary to the bylaws. There is an exception. If there is a separated bike lane or a multi-use pathway beside, like any of those major roads that have a multi-use pathway or a separated bike lane, that's fine. E-scooters can go in there, but not just a bike lane. It has to be separated. The provincial legislation allows you to go as far right as you can on some of these major roads or use the normal bike lane. But the city of Burnaby is actually going a few steps farther and saying you're not allowed on there at all if there's not a separated bike lane. So we know that injuries are on the rise across the country from e-scooters. That's from the Canadian Institute of Health Information. And so municipalities are trying to come to grips with that, and passing bylaws like this, they're hoping that that will help. One thing that I talked to the city's transportation director, Amy Cho. She explained that I was asking, what roads are the major roads? And she said it's not about memorizing what a major road is. It's recognizing, like memorizing all the major roads, but recognizing what a major road looks like, which is that there's a certain speed limits, is 50 kilometers an hour or more, I think. There's trucks allowed on it. So I found that actually not exactly helpful because, and I know this one, I had a reader email me and say, where do I find out what roads I'm allowed to be on and not be on? So at the risk of editorializing, it might be a good idea for the city to say, here's the places you can't ride your e-scooter, instead of maybe expecting e-scooter riders to figuring out themselves what a major road is. But yeah, no major or minor arterials and no major road networks. You're not allowed to ride on those unless they have a separated bike lane or a multi-use pathway beside.
Take some encouragement that you saw an e-scooter laboring up Gallardy Way, up Burnaby Mountain. So I won't feel so bad when I'm laboring up on my bicycle up Gallardy Way on Burnaby Mountain.
Yeah. I mean, we know that it's also dangerous for bikes to go up Gallardy Way up there. I mean, it would be so tempting to ride your bike up there, but we know that there have been accidents, even fatal accidents there before. And I think there's been some call for there to be a separated bike lane.
Just jump in here and say that in New West, they did not sign on to that provincial kick scooter program, the pilot project. So as a result of that, scooters in New Westminster are just, they're you're not allowed to ride them. And so it's been a bit of a conundrum in some ways, because officials like the police department can't really educate because it's something that's illegal.
That's right. That's something I should have mentioned. Under this pilot program, e-scooters aren't legal unless you're a part of this program, and then that legislation applies. And so I can totally see the catch-22 that New Westminster is in. They can't educate because they can't educate them to do something illegal.
Exactly.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
So, Theresa, I hear you have a 911 item as well.
Yeah, on Tuesday night, anybody that was in downtown New West may have seen a lot of police action. There were officers and cars parked all around the shops at New West Station, the SkyTrain station there. And yeah, it sort of happened around 8:15 when the police got a call from someone reporting that they had seen someone wearing a handgun. And the police responded, as they do when there's a weapons call, in force. And in this particular case, there was New Westminster Police Department officers, RCMP's Integrated Police Dog Services, Metro Vancouver Transit Police, and the Burnaby RCMP. And when they took a fellow into custody, they found that he was in possession of a holstered replica firearm and magazine. So he actually was wearing a holster on his person. And when I did talk to Sergeant Andrew Lever, I said, "Is that common?" And he said, "We do not see that very often." He said, "Holstered weapons on the hip is something we normally see police officers do, not members of the public." So no injuries, but there was quite a big police presence down there. Whenever there's any kind of a call regarding a weapon, they have to act as though it is a real weapon. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And Cornelia, you mentioned you had something as well.
Yeah, this is something that actually happened in December 2024, but it was in BC provincial court. I listened to a sentencing of a man who was involved in a road rage incident. So it was actually a New Westminster man, and the incident happened in Burnaby on Marine Way on December 13, 2024, according to facts presented at this sentencing hearing. At about 8:30 in the morning, there was a man traveling with two kids in the back across the Queensboro Bridge, came onto Marine Way, and there was somebody behind him honking, tailgating, flashing his high beams. And the man in front was going the speed limit because it was raining. But eventually, the man behind him passed on the shoulder, slammed on the brakes, and caused a rear end collision. So they stopped, and the man in front, who had been honking and tailgating, came out. The man with his children was still in his car, but he had the door open. The other man came and punched him in the face in front of his children, and then jumped into his car, even though the victim was videoing this, saying that the police had been called and the guy took off. So a man named Gustav Gustafsson, now 63, was charged with assault and leaving the scene of an accident. He eventually pleaded guilty to assault and was sentenced to, what was he sentenced to? He was sentenced to a 3-month conditional sentence and 1 year of probation. He said he was very sorry and it should never have happened. Yeah. He was just dealing with some difficult life things at the time, and his emotions got the better of him. It's always interesting to see how these things play out in court. I like being able to follow cases from when the charges are laid, when the police are there, and seeing how, what comes out at the other end. It's usually a long process, but it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, seeing the cause and effect, as you say,
Oh.
from start to finish.
Oh.
Well, I want to turn now to sunnier topics. One of those comes from Janice with a story about how kids can swim, skate, and work out for a bargain price this summer at civic recreation hubs around the region. This and next month, Burnaby, New Westminster, and the Tri-Cities are releasing passes for young residents to play for less than $25 throughout their summer break. So what's the scoop on this, Janice?
Well, as a parent, this is an absolute godsend. For $25, you can keep the kids busy all summer long. And so these are passes in Burnaby, New Westminster, Coquitlam, and Port Moody that are going on sale this week or next week. Um, what can I say? I mean, throw the kids into the rec center and let them have fun. And in Coquitlam specifically, not only is it a schools out pass, which lasts all summer, but their program also runs through the winter break and through spring break of next year. It's a really great deal, and I would encourage all the parents to buy one of these and get the kids into the rec centers.
That sounds like good advice. And staying with you, Janice, your story about the artwork produced by a local fashion model and actor also caught my eye. Tell us more.
So about like every month at Plasty's Art in Coquitlam, they have exhibit openings. On Friday, they had 3 that opened, and one is called Spirit of Spring. It's by Min Joyce Abram. She lives in Vancouver, and she's got some beautiful Chinese traditional ink and watercolor pieces that are going to be on display. What she does is she puts her paintings on matted rice paper and then rolls them in water, and that's to get all the crinkles out of the paper once the watercolor is put on. And I thought it was a really interesting technique in how she did that. There's 2 other exhibits that are opening that night. One is from the students of Don Portalance, who is very famous in Coquitlam. He taught art at Centennial for years and years, and now he teaches at Platy's Art. And the other one is is a community exhibit, and that's in the main atrium. And this is all the past students and current students, uh, some community members, some teachers and staff who work at Platy's Art. And it's time for them to shine. And they have a very big display of some really beautiful pieces. It's all different mediums, paintings, photography, sculptures, and that Those 3 displays are on until the end of June.
Well, that sounds like a great place to start your weekend plans. What else is on this weekend?
Oh, Jeff, get your shoes on. There are 5 major, walks coming up, on Sunday. One is the Run Up for Down Syndrome at Swangard Stadium. And then, there's the monthly walk with, Mayor Mike Hurley, and, that's on Sunday at 9 a.m. You can get a pancake from the, Burnaby firefighters. There's the Walk for Alzheimer's at Old Town Center. There's the MS Walk happening at Rocky Point Park in Port Moody. There's the Walk for Dog Guides happening in Port Coquitlam at the Lions Park. And of course, go take a walk around all the heritage homes in New Westminster on Sunday. There's some beautiful homes that are open to the public. And this is the 44th year of the New Westminster Heritage Homes Tour.
Fantastic. Now, just a quick question. How far do you have to walk for a pancake?
I do believe you have to walk around the lake. You meet at the
Really?
Christine Sinclair Community Center, and you can have a chat with the mayor along the way.
Okay. That still seems like a 2 pancake outing at least.
For $2.
Okay. Well, that's a good price for a pancake.
It is.
Okay, well, I'd like to turn now to local sports and particularly how to help your kids find the sports that suits them best. Okay, I'd like to turn now to local sports and particularly how to help your kids find the sport that suits them best. And Mario, you had a story in yesterday's print edition about a new online tool that could potentially help families find the right sports fit for their kids. I definitely want to hear about how this works.
Well, any parent out there listening who has young children and wants to get them involved in sports has probably had the challenge of navigating the various options out there and trying to find the right fit for their child, which may not necessarily be just their favorite sport, but other things come into consideration, like how the schedule is, how many hours are being dedicated to practices and games every week, and the commitment and the level of coaching, and it can be a real challenge, uh, Coquitlam Metro Ford Sports Soccer Club is, I think, the largest or one of the largest amateur soccer organizations in the province, and they've seen this problem. They have a lot of resources at their disposal. So Alex Barniston, the president of the club, he saw a need. He's got a European background. He played some soccer over in Europe, and he became very familiar with the club system that's there, where a big organization like FC Barcelona doesn't just do soccer; they also do uh, basketball and European handball, and they have all these whole facilities at Camp Nou. They're not just the giant stadium where the famous FC Barcelona soccer team plays. They also have an arena. They have uh, small outdoor soccer facilities for the mini soccer games and that. So he hooked up with a Vancouver-based consulting company called FSQ Sport, and they put their heads together and have come up with an online tool that they scoured all the various civic sports programs and put those all into a database. And now you can search that. Parents in the Tri-Cities can search that database. They can search in English, French, Chinese, or Mandarin, and also Farsi. So it's also it's helping the multicultural community. And they can use various parameters for the search, age group, and how many hours they want to have their child committed to a sport, and it'll come up with options and contact information and what the sport is all about, how many hours are typically being used for practices and games, and they can use that information to go forward and try and make a good fit for their child and their family situation as well. So talking to Alex, his hope is that other sports organizations in the Tri-Cities will come aboard and put their information in as well. So eventually you'll have this massive database that's like a one-stop shop of, does my child want to play field hockey? Does my child want to play ultimate frisbee? Does my child want to play soccer? Does my child want to play hockey or ringette, and you can find out what's all required for those and when they occur and where the facilities are, and make a decision there instead of just kind of jumping in blindly and committing thousands or hundreds or thousands of dollars and then finding out a year later that that was just not a good fit. Um, the interesting thing is this kind of came on the heels. So they've been working on this for a bit with FSQ Sport, but this came on the heels of a federal report about sport in Canada, and it found that one of the problems of amateur sport in this country is every organization operates in its own silo, and because of that, they're very insular and don't if you have a child who does multiple sports, you can often find conflicts with their scheduling, and your field hockey practice is running at the same time as your soccer match. How do you make a choice? Or there's crossover. The hope is that eventually everyone can kind of, if everyone knows what everyone else is doing and works together, they can find efficiencies and also make it easier for parents and families to navigate the amateur sports scene, and hopefully increase participation and interest because it becomes easier to do.
Yeah, that is a much better system than I remember going to those early morning signups where you're going to the rec center and you have to sign your kid up for something and you have to be there really early because otherwise the spots are going to fill up and like, oh, okay, I can only get them into this. Well, I don't know whether it's going to work for them or not, and I've just signed them up for 40 hours of it, but this sounds like a much, much better system than that.
Yeah, I mean, with our young son, when he was young, we didn't know what kind of sports. We tried track and field, we tried ball hockey, we tried baseball, we tried soccer, and it was every season was a bit of an experiment, and to see where he'd go. And ultimately, he landed on skateboarding.
Well, and that's the thing. I think sometimes if you're, as a parent, if you're into a sport, often your kid just defaults into those sports. I know that my kids all played soccer because we played soccer, and I think there are lots of sports that they would like to have explored besides those. They're happy they played soccer. They don't regret that, but I think they could have branched out because I like that. I like that idea that it would help you with scheduling, where it's like if I take this, I can also take this. That there would be a way for kids to maybe do multiple things. But if they're all in silos, you don't know if they're gonna overlap or yeah. Sounds
Yeah,
great.
or if you got a kid who like they're great in individual sports, but like,
Mm.
okay, well, I'm just having fun kicking this ball around. I don't really care if we win. And then
Uh-huh.
some other kids might not be happy about that. So good to explore those options before you go in. Well, we're now come to our favorite stories of the week. I am gonna start off with Janice. Do you have a favorite story this week?
I had a story that was the arts front in the newspaper on Thursday. This is a story about the curator at the Evergreen Arts. And during COVID, she had noticed, she had toured Lafarge Lake every day. And she noticed that there was so many people that were out fishing. And so she created an exhibit around it. And it connects not only cultural traditions, but also the oceans, Pacific, Atlantic, and Arctic. And this exhibit opens up on June 6th. And the reception for it is actually on June 11th. And it features two people that we know very well, Mario, um, uh, Sarah and Adam Faber, who are from the East Coast, and they're going to be having a good old kitchen party. So this is at Evergreen Arts in Coquitlam, and June 6th, come see the exhibit called Lure.
Fantastic. How about you, Teresa?
Well, I really enjoyed the spread that Mario did in the paper about the New Westminster Heritage Homes Tour. I was just sort of loving the photos and hearing the story of the couple that owned the mid-century home up in Massey Victory Heights. And I am going on the tour this weekend, so I will be looking for that flower countertop that was photographed in one of the kitchens. I've never seen anything like it before.
That sounds great. Mario, how about you?
Well, I took the opportunity last Thursday to go and shoot some photos at the New West Salmon Bellies season opener against the Burnaby Lakers at Queen's Park Arena. It's the first time the Salmon Bellies have played since they were beaten out in the Mann Cup last summer or last fall. And it's been a while since I've gone and shot the Salmon Bellies. I used to live just about a block away from Queens Park Arena, so lacrosse season would always be an opportunity just to kind of stroll on up and pop into the arena for a period or two and shoot some photos and be on my way. Didn't have to worry about parking or anything like that. And the thing that was interesting about this game was I got a text partway through the first period from Theresa, who was also at the game as a fan, saying, "Oh, make sure you get some shots of Lucas Nielsen. He's my choice for Rookie of the Year." And I thought, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll see what I can do."
What does she know?
So yeah, I thought, okay, well, I'll keep an eye on for him as number 11. And as these things often happen as a photographer, when you're shooting a game, you just kind of you sort of pay attention to the flow, but you don't really know the specifics of what's going on. You're just kind of looking for good photos, good moments, and being able to anticipate those good moments. And you don't really pay attention to who's doing what. But I got home and I started editing the frames I shot, and who should show up in a large number of them but number 11, Lucas Nielsen, who ended up scoring 5 goals that night. So I think Teresa's prediction that he could be the league's Rookie of the Year this year, if he keeps going like that, it'll be that's a pretty good call. So if you're in your Western Lacrosse Association pool and you haven't picked Lucas Nielsen, you've probably missed out.
Well, Lucas actually, he may be a rookie, but he actually just played in the NLL. So, and he has suited up for the senior team in the past as a call up. So, the fact that you managed to get the photo of him doing his diving shot though was well done, Mario.
And that was before you texted me. So the camera has a way of finding these guys, it seems.
The
I
camera
think it's
finds
all
the
the
talent.
photographer. It's all on the photographer.
That's great, Mario. How about you, Cornelia?
Well, last week we talked about the Burnaby Mountain Trail Management Plan, I think, a way to assess all the trails and come up with a plan for them. And my favorite story this week came from that. I went up there to get some photos for that, for the, possibly for the newspaper. And I saw, as I was walking along, a sign that said Velodrome Trail closed. So one of the trails was closed, and I had heard something about it at City Council. So it said the stairs were closed. There was a big gate, and so I went around the gate. Took a little while. It wasn't totally closed. At the gate, apparently the trail wasn't closed. It was just the stairs of the. So the Velodrome Trail, and anybody who's interested, this story is in this Thursday's paper, and I know that there's a petition to reopen the stairs. They were closed a year ago, unexpectedly, or without warning, and people have been mourning them. They're called Burnaby's Grind. Some people call it that because they're these grueling 500 stairs that go up the north face of Burnaby Mountain, and they've been closed. I talked to the parks director, and he told me it was done for safety reasons, and now they've stayed closed for more than a year because the fix is going to be more than they thought it was. But it was really beautiful to go up there. That was what I liked about this story, is that, I was so out of breath by the time I even got down to the stairs, let alone went back up from where the stairs started. And they have some, just at those stairs, there was actually somebody sitting right there, not wanting to go all the way down, I think, or maybe she came up, I don't know. I was looking, they have just beautiful views of Burrard Inlet. And it's a very unique trail on the mountain because there's really no trails on the north side overlooking the inlet. So it's a unique trail, and its fate is up in the air. So it was interesting to be able to go there and see it, and just once again walk around on those wonderful trails up at Burnaby Mountain.
Yeah, it's great when a story leads you to some new discoveries. My favorite story this week is a story you did, Janis, about in advance of Celebrate BC. You had a story about this wonderful Fast and Furriest race that is being planned for Celebrate BC, where you're going to have a bunch of corgis and dachshunds dashing down a course, and I think that's going to be highly amusing. So great story, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you all for that, and that wraps up another Freshet Friday podcast, but we'll be back soon, and we just came out in print yesterday, so get your copy today at your regular Freshet News distribution point. And in the meantime, keep asking yourself the question, is it Freshet Freshet Friday yet? And come on back when the answer is yes. Thanks again to our team for being here. Thanks to you for listening, and have a great weekend.